Welcome and greetings to everyone from Vilnius. We plan to meet here in person in Vilnius for 2020 General Assembly, but instead I'm sending you only greetings this time. I hope we'll meet next year. COVID-19, a sudden and urgent crisis, has really affected everybody's lives. According to UNESCO, by March 2020, universities, colleges, and schools closed in 193 countries. Libraries were forced to reorganize their operations to continue services to faculties and students, now working and studying remotely from their homes. And this shift to a virtual learning environment particularly was challenging to institutions in developing and transition economy countries where we work. For example, many university libraries do not have a sufficient IT infrastructure or funding to implement remote access systems to access learning material or licensed resources. The speed and extent of COVID-19 took us really by surprise. And EIFL's programs had to adapt quickly and accommodate the needs generated by the crisis. So what was EIFL's response to it? Our licensing program immediately reached out to our partner publishers, asking to provide access to journals, ebooks, databases via username and password. Our Kupryte and libraries program co-wrote an open letter calling on WIPO to provide guidance to member states to ensure that the IP regime supports urgent worldwide efforts to tackle COVID-19. Our open access program engaged in particular actions, co-curating research material and data, allowing scientists and people working in the health sector to easily and speedily find the latest COVID-19 related research on OpenAir and Zenodo platforms. And our public library innovation program kept in touch with our public library grantees and facilitated exchange of experiences of libraries working during the lockdown. These are just the headlines, and in the individual presentations, program managers will speak in greater detail about what they've been doing in relation to COVID-19. So what did we manage to achieve to fulfill our mission during the last 12 months since our 2019 General Assembly? We welcomed Albania as the newest partner in EIFL network. It comprises of 30 libraries across the country and includes all types of libraries. We'd like to welcome Albana, Renata, and Milona as EIFL coordinators from Albania. We had a lot of celebrations during the year. Last year, we celebrated EIFL's 20th anniversary during our General Assembly, and shortly afterwards, we celebrated the 10th anniversary of the EIFL's Public Library Innovation Program. This year, we're celebrating the 15th anniversary of the Copyright and Libraries program. Our program manager, Teresa, has been with us from the start of the program in 2005. Thank you, Teresa, for your tireless work in the area that involves changing policies and laws. And I know it takes a lot of time and requires patience, optimism, and resilience. We do plan virtual celebrations in November, so follow us on social media for alerts and details. Teresa's leadership of the Copyright and Libraries program in support to negotiations at WIPO for adoption of the Marrakesh Treaty, its ratification and implementation EIFL partners was recognized this year. We shortlisted as a finalist of the 2020 ABC International Excellence Award for Accessible Publishing. Every year, more people with print disabilities can benefit from the Marrakesh Treaty, which enables copying of books and other print works in accessible formats without having to ask permission from the copyright holders. It also allows countries to share accessible format copies across the border with other countries that join the treaty. Since last General Assembly, August 2019, 5 more EIFL partner countries have joined the Marrakesh Treaty. It's Belarus, Cote d'Ivoire, Serbia, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe. So this month we actually reached a milestone. Half of EIFL partner countries have now joined the treaty, and many of them have already implemented changes in national corporate laws that now allows libraries to meet information needs of people with print disabilities. So what did we do? What did we do to have more content in open access? Our strategy to increase availability of open access content includes encouraging authors from EIFL partner countries to publish in open access journals and to increase deposit rates of articles openly available in repositories. We do have agreements in place with 6 publishers for free or discounted article processing charges. Currently, agreements includes publishing in more than 1,100 journals, but these numbers will grow as we're talking with more publishers. To make it easier for authors to know where they can publish for free or get highly discounted rates for article processing charges, we produced country-specific lists and launched a campaign to reach researchers who already publish but in subscription-based journals to raise their awareness about these possibilities. Researchers are also taking notice. Last time we checked, there were more than 4,400 downloads of country-specific lists of eligible journals for APC. We will be monitoring next year to see if there have been an increase of publications in open access from these countries. There are more than 1,200 open access repositories in EIFL partner countries. In collaboration with the Myanmar Ministry of Education, Department of Higher Education, Rectors Committee, and the National Institute of Informatics of Japan, this year we launched the Myanmar Education Research and Learning Portal. Currently it has over 5,000 articles from 19 universities. Merrill is included in the ministry's strategic plan, and so it's there to grow. We've also been collaborating with Google Scholar to fix indexing issues of repositories and journals to make them discoverable through their search engine. By today, over 160,000 documents are already discoverable in open access from repositories in Kenya, Latvia, Myanmar, Ukraine, that previously were not there. And 250 open access journals that hold thousands of articles from Nepal, Lithuania, Serbia, Ukraine can also be found now in Google Scholar. And this work continues. This year, we also started planning a campaign to increase deposit rates of articles in repositories. We will be talking to publishing partners on how to help authors to get right versions of the article, which is allowed to be made available in the repository. Due to the long embargo period, many of the authors can no longer find their copy. But this work has just started, and we hope that the next year we'll be able to show the results of these efforts. And to finish my presentation, I'll highlight the work of the Public Library Innovation Program. we just completed a 20-month project with Namibia Library and Information Services. The Namibia National and Library Information Services manages a network of 66 public libraries with over 260 staff. And the goal of this partnership was to ensure that technology, which is available in public libraries, is used to full potential in the new services that respond to community needs. So we identified jointly 16 public librarians that were trained as trainers, and now they train other public librarians in a variety of subjects, and they've been already doing this in cascade training workshops. Unfortunately, cascade trainings were interrupted by pandemic-related restrictions, but from the training that has been taking place, we received very positive feedback. And we're also completing a similar Train the Trainers program in Kenya, and do have plans to launch one in Ghana next year. So thank you very much for joining us today. And I will ask now Teresa from Kupryte and Libraries program to share her screen and talk in more details about her program.
Okay, thanks very much, Rima. So I'm going to now share my screen. So hopefully you can all see that. Is that yes?
Yes.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, great. Well, thanks very much, Rima, for that introduction, and welcome to all the participants who are taking part in our first virtual General Assembly. As Rima says, copyright reform does take time, but when we get results, I think the results are long lasting and they really do make a difference. And I'd like to thank at the outset the EIFL copyright coordinators, because without your work on the ground, you know, we wouldn't be able to achieve the things that we do. And many of you have been with us on the journey since the beginning, and some of you are on the General Assembly here today. So thanks very much for your hard work as well and your partnership. So in my brief presentation, I'm going to give you some highlights from the copyright program since the last General Assembly. So I'll talk about 4 issues: copyright and COVID, the Marrakesh Treaty for persons with print disabilities. We'll highlight some copyright law reforms in Myanmar and South Africa. And then we'll finish with copyright and trade, talking about the proposed US-Kenya Free Trade Agreement. Before I do that, for those of you who are not familiar with the EIFL copyright program, known as EIFL-IP, what do we do? Well, we support national copyright law reform. We also advocate for global copyright rules to benefit libraries, so that's at the international level. We also build capacity of librarians in copyright through our network of copyright coordinators and the training that we give, and the advice and the support. And we develop practical resources that are available online, freely available, translated into multiple languages. And we'll give you the link to those resources in the chat box. So in terms of copyright and COVID, well, as Rima mentioned, this has been a really big disruptive effect on all our lives, and also on the issue connected with copyright. So the experience of libraries, I would say, is that librarians in many countries and in many institutions have been at the forefront, supporting their teachers and their students in moving their courses very quickly online, in particular advising on the provision of learning materials. So what copyright librarians had to very quickly do was to assess the impact of this new situation, which was a mass switch overnight to online learning. According to national copyright laws and or the applicable license that might apply. So if it's an e-resource, it's typically a license that will apply to that resource. So assessing the impact of the delivering courses remotely and having to provide resources remotely to look at how does that, what is the legal situation for that. And what we found is that some copyright laws are better adapted to this new situation than others. And some of the license restrictions were problematic, like the caps on the limits of number of simultaneous users. And maybe now the teacher needs to provide those resources to many more people at the same time. So what some of the lessons from COVID are, the emerging lessons, because of course we're still in very early days and we're still learning what the lessons might be and what are the implications long term. I think the first thing is that we realize the importance of statutory limitations and exceptions. So that's a right by law to provide access to materials for certain purposes and in certain situations. And in particular, what's been very useful for those countries that are lucky enough to have it is to have a flexible general use exception, a kind of a fair use type exception. That was very useful in providing a safety valve in terms of emergencies like COVID. The second issue was that ensuring that license terms, the terms in your licenses for e-resources, don't take away from those statutory rights that you have in your copyright law. The second issue is, I think that, well, librarians around the world were very grateful to publishers for providing, for expanding access to their resources during the time of the pandemic, and still are. And that's been very useful and very helpful. But there is a sense that we shouldn't have to rely on the goodwill of individual publishers to deliver on this very fundamental right to education, especially in times of crisis. The third issue is copyright literacy. And that's, as I mentioned earlier, that the role of librarians in helping teachers and students to understand the copyright issues involved in providing information online and to navigate their way through these legal issues. And I think librarians are going to have an important role going forward in promoting open access resources and OERs and helping institutions to get the best value from their e-resource licenses when we find that cuts in education budgets and as the economic downturn happens, as we all expect, will be over the next years. And then the fourth issue that came up quite clearly was pricing models for academic ebooks. So I suppose two issues, the availability of academic ebooks and also pricing models. So librarians are reporting that, that some academic titles might cost up to 10 times the cost of printed versions for single user licenses, or maybe licenses for up to 3 users. So that's becoming an issue. So I think we'll see some, those issues are emerging, and we'll see some discussion and debate on how we can overcome those issues. So where are we now in terms of copyright and COVID? Well, we've seen this massive shift in terms of how education is delivered. Access to information is online, digital, and cross-border, and there is also a sense that there's no going back. So while we resolve while the COVID situation in the next maybe year or two is mitigated, and things kind of go back a little bit to how things were before, and there's face-to-face teaching can resume again, there is a sense that there's kind of no going back in terms of how information is accessed in general. And the world has been really sensitized to the benefits of openness. So that's teachers and researchers and also policymakers. So whether it's the World Health Organization developing their CTAP, the COVID Technology Access Pool, encouraging access to medical and technical developments to be pooled together, or whether it's UNESCO encouraging over 120 countries to embrace open science and to encourage greater cooperation, or whether it's researchers depositing their documents, their research outputs and their data very quickly in open access repositories. I think there is this really sense that, that the world is attuned to the benefits of sharing for the common public good. And then also the need to have resilient copyright laws for the post-COVID world and also future pandemics and other disruptive events, like, for example, climate change, which hasn't, of course, gone away. So we're using this experience and these lessons to build on our work at WIPO, where we've been advocating for many years for a global legal framework to benefit libraries and archives and museums. And we're advocating there for copyright exceptions and limitations. We participated last week in the WIPO assemblies remotely, delivering statements on issues to do with the limitations and exceptions and the Marrakesh Treaty. And we will be focusing our work on in particular relating to COVID, the right to research. So we have text and data mining, digital preservation, so that's for future researchers, and work that the information is preserved so that future researchers can learn from past pandemics and so on, and the right to education, so having fair access to teaching materials online. So the forum that sets these global copyright rules is WIPO's Committee on Copyright. It's scheduled to meet next in November, and we will see if that happens in a physical format, or it may be in an online format or a hybrid format. But we will be engaging with our partners in libraries, archives, museums, and education. So in terms of the Marrakesh Treaty, as Rima mentioned, there's now 50% of EIFL partner countries have joined the Marrakesh Treaty, and we're really, really delighted at that result. So there's 98 countries in total have joined the treaty, so that's almost tipping 100. And since the last GA, we've welcomed 5 new countries. Côte d'Ivoire was the very most recent accession to the treaty, and that just happened a couple of days ago. So well done, all of you, and we'll be working with you to assist in implementing the treaty into national law. And last September, we did co-organize the first international workshop on putting the treaty into practice in a region. So there were we included delegates from Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Belarus, and Russia. Seems a very long time ago now. Can you imagine meeting together in a group? But it was a very successful meeting, and we were honoured to be for the opening session to be attended by the Minister for Culture in Lithuania. So we've produced a practical getting started guide that's available in different languages on EIFL's website. And as a result of the workshop, the first book exchange took place between Poland and Lithuania, and there are examples of libraries cooperating in a new way and organizing really practical exchanges. And that's what the Marrakesh Treaty was all about, getting books into the hands of people with print disabilities. Now moving on to the national copyright law reform. So in Myanmar, the new copyright law was adopted in 2019. And this law, when it enters into force, does provide a legal infrastructure that will support libraries' education and research. There are new exceptions for many important issues like private study, online teaching, course packs, and use in virtual learning environments. So the new Myanmar copyright law, we could say, is COVID ready, which is really great. There's also provisions for document delivery services and digital preservation by libraries, and the making of accessible format copies for people with print disabilities. And I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Tin Win Yi and the team in Myanmar who helped to make that happen. Then moving to another country, to South Africa, where the situation is a little more complicated, shall we say. In 2019, the legislature in South Africa approved the Copyright Amendment Bill, and it was on the desk of the President for signing. But in 2020, the President has returned the bill to Parliament, citing constitutional concerns with some aspects of the bill. So the bill has now gone back to the National Assembly for further review. Some of the issues, some of the concerns include the introduction of a fair use provision and exceptions for libraries in education. Now, the government in South Africa has come under a lot of big pressure from industry and multinational corporations, and from the US and the EU in particular. There have been threats of trade sanctions and withdrawal of investment in South Africa. So very important and very serious issues have been raised. EIFL testified at a public hearing in January this year in Washington that was held by the US Trade Representative, and we've also written to the President and Speaker of the Parliament in support of the bill. So we'll be continuing working with our colleagues in South Africa on that and hoping for a good outcome, because the bill has some really well-crafted good exceptions for libraries, education, research and people with disabilities. And some of the provisions in the bill were inspired by EIFL's model copyright law. And then the final topic is copyright and trade. So there is a proposed free trade agreement between the US and Kenya, and the negotiations started earlier on this year. It's designed to be a comprehensive bilateral trade agreement to strengthen the economic partnership between the two countries. And I think one of the issues why it's particularly important is that from the US perspective, is that they say that this agreement could be a model for additional trade agreements across Africa. So it could set a model or a precedent. In the current version of the negotiating objectives from the US and the Kenya government, there is a proposal to have a chapter on intellectual property, which includes copyright, and that's why we're interested and we're involved. It's important for us to be involved. If this was to happen, it would be the first time that a standard of IP protection similar in US law would be applied to a country in sub-Saharan Africa. And this does raise some concerns. So we're working with our colleagues at the Kenya Libraries and Information Consortium to help make sure that there are the best outcomes for libraries in how this trade agreement might, how the negotiations might progress. So that's the end of my brief presentation. I think we're going to, if there's any burning questions, if I have time, I'll look to our moderator. I'm happy to take them, and I'm going to have a quick look now in the Q&A and see if there's any questions. And otherwise, then I think we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So if you've any other questions occur to you, please put them into the Q&A, and then we'll take them at the end. Thank you. I'm gonna.
There are no burning questions right now, so I think we can just continue.
Okay, so
thanks, Teresa. All right, let me share my screen. Okay, I hope you can see that and hear me. So thank you for the overview, Teresa, and welcome to everyone who's joined. I think we now have more than 120 people, which is very exciting. So welcome to everyone, librarians, coordinators, publishers, and anyone who's watching the recording later. I know there's a few people who said they wanted to join but weren't able to, so you can watch the recording at a later time. So my name is Romy Beard. For those that don't know me, I manage the EIFL-Licensing program. And the main aim of the program is really to provide access to content for libraries and users in EIFL partner countries. And obviously COVID-19 created a bit of a problem for libraries and their users, because libraries had to shut so quickly and weren't prepared. And a lot of libraries, unfortunately, in EIFL partner countries were not equipped to deal with the situation, because most users were using the resources from on campus and didn't have remote access solutions installed. So as Rima said in her overview, we've reached out to our partner publishers to ask them to allow for access via username and password, so students could access content from home. We've also informed members of different remote access solutions and even wrote a proposal to a donor to try and get funding to pay for those libraries that don't have any solutions installed to allow their students to access from home. We've also renewed our agreement with partners Clad Engineering for the remote access and MyLoft solutions. And this remains a priority for the program, because as Teresa said, this is here to stay. Even if COVID goes away, the benefits of online learning and teaching are being recognized, and everyone should have access to remotely to their e-resources. The other issue, of course, is content. And because the libraries were shut, nobody could access the print resources either. And a lot of users were still reliant on that. So it's been really great to see publishers open up additional content for their users. There's been a lot of information spread. There's been a great useful spreadsheet by Alcock, which we've tried to take apart a little bit, because some publishers, for example, if libraries had a subscription to journals, they would open up additional content to textbooks, which usually users would only access in print. And obviously there's been a lot of COVID-19 related content that's been opened up, but also general content. Some publishers that open up all of their content made it open access for everyone to access, which has been really fantastic to see. What we're focusing on just now as well is 2021 to make sure that there's no price increase or very low price increases. And there's been a lot of statements from publishers to say we're just keeping the same prices as 2020, which is really great. Because obviously with priority shifting, libraries' budgets have suffered from this pandemic. When it comes to access to content, then, like I said, the main aim of the program is to negotiate free and discounted access to content that is otherwise paywalled. So since the last year, we signed a couple of new agreements with MSP, Mathematical Sciences Publishers, and De Gruyter. And we're in discussion with a number of publishers, which include also access to content, including Brill and ERS, where we've had some updated offers, which are really promising. We've been working together with Information Power on a project with small society publishers. So I hope that we'll manage to finalize something in the next month. There's also been a lot of renewals since the last year. I won't go through the details to all of these agreements. Everything is on the website on the eifl.net/e-resources. And again, there's renewals that we're working on just now, where we already have proposals and we're just finalizing things that will be communicated to coordinators and librarians as soon as it's signed. To measure the success of the access to content negotiations and who's getting access to what, we collect usage statistics every year. This is how I start my year, January, February. I focus on collecting statistics from all the publishers, and in total there's been 6.4 million downloads in 2019. And I'm quite looking at this upward trend chart to see that since the first statistics that we could find, 2002, there's been an upward trend. There's still an increase in downloads, even though some countries leave, some publishers change agreements, remove some countries from eligibility. So it's not always comparing like for like, but we still see this increase in downloads, which is really great. Next then, as Rima has already indicated in her presentation, we, as a licensing program, really try to support this global move to accelerate the transition to open access via transformative agreements. We've been collaborating with OA 2020. Remember last year at the GA, we had Colleen Campbell with us for presentation and workshops, are keeping an eye on Plan S announcement and also what's being discussed within the ICOL community. And there's really two things that the program has done. One is to raise awareness between coordinators to negotiate their own agreements, but also make them aware of the APC spend within their countries and their libraries, to make them aware what is happening, even if they're not managing to sign those kind of agreements themselves yet, but just to bring that into the discussion. But some of the countries are doing this. As EIFL, we find that negotiating transformative agreements as such wasn't feasible because we are kind of a consortium of consortia and not in charge of the money ourselves. So we include more publish and read offers, but our focus has been really on the article processing charges to continue to negotiate discounted and waivers for that. In terms of capacity building, we run a number of educational webinars. So we've had 3 different ones: monitoring the cost of publishing in open access, subscription cancellations and alternative access options, and also an overview from Iowa State, which has been very well attended. And we put together a list of recommendations for countries when they are negotiating their own agreements, including publish and read or transformative agreements, and a step-by-step guide of what they should be thinking about. And we've had a lot of one-to-one calls or group calls, which have been very useful, I think. In terms of the agreements then, like I said, there's the main focus for us has been on these waivers and discounts for APCs. We know this might not be a long-term solution, but we feel this is what we can do at the moment to support this transition. Unfortunately, there's a number of barriers for authors in EIFL countries when it comes to publishing in open access. One is the cost of APCs, article processing charges. The other one is changes in eligibility. When publishers move a country where they say you used to get waivers, now you only get 50% discount, that's obviously not a very good long-term solution, and it can be very confusing for researchers to know who gives them a waiver, who gives them a discount, and a lot of them are not aware. What I find the problem as well is that most publishers do not include hybrid journals in their waiver and discount schemes. I think that's not very fair, because if a researcher wants to publish in a specific journal and that happens to be a hybrid journal, if they don't have any funds for APCs, they are then forced to publish in the subscription journal. So we try and change that and include hybrid, also then encourage authors to look elsewhere and look at other journals where they can publish. And I'll talk a little bit more about awareness raising and communication, because we've found that a lot of researchers are not aware often, and they don't know if they're eligible for a waiver. So these are then our kind of aims when it comes to negotiating open access agreements with publishers. We want to include APC discounts and waivers in a fixed contract. So ideally there shouldn't be any changes during the contract term, and researchers can plan and know exactly what is happening. We try and include as many countries as possible, even those countries that publishers might have excluded from sales deals because they have agents in place. And I find that publishers are quite open at that, and oftentimes have a wider range of countries included in those deals than in the sales part. We also want to make sure these agreements are open to all institutions and not restricted to those with active subscriptions. In the case of hybrid journals, I understand this isn't always possible, and again, it depends on publisher to publisher. The inclusion of hybrid journals, like I said, this is changing a little bit. Our agreement with De Gruyter and Edward Elgar does include hybrid journals, and forthcoming agreements with Brill and World Scientific will do as well, so I'm very happy about that. The next problem is automatic recognition of authors. Again, I find this is changing. Some publishers are investing money into systems that allow authors to be recognized automatically and waivers and discount to be applied automatically. Hopefully even to the point that it doesn't show up as a waiver or discount, and we don't need to use that language, but it will simply show us up as a lower price for them, or even no price at all. Others, however, during the submission process, authors need to actively tick a box to say, I want to claim this discount. And if they don't do it during the submission process, their chance is gone and they can't claim the waiver or discount later, which is a real shame. And a lot of authors, like I said, are not aware of this. Now, I understand that Some smaller publishers don't have the infrastructure to do this, but I think there's other things that can be done. There's one publisher I'm in touch with, and they said we can't do automatic recognition. But what we will do is, once we accept an article, we'll email the author. In our acceptance letter, we'll include information and remind them that they're eligible for a waiver or discount. So again, that's a bit more proactive, and it kind of helps overcome this problem that they might not be aware, which is really great. And here's a link to, if you want to see the full list of principles, which is also on our website. So that's our goal. No, it doesn't always happen, but in total, we have 6 agreements in place for over 1,100 journals, and in touch with a lot of other publishers. We really looked at publication output from EIFL partner, so corresponding authors in EIFL partner countries, and looked at the top 30 publishers, and this is really how we focused and contacted those publishers in the last few months, really since the start of the year. Like I mentioned, with Brill and World Scientific, we're very close to signing. We also have a good offer from ERS and the Company of Biologists, which I'm hoping will come to a close very soon. Communications, this is really a key thing, and we find that we wanted to be a lot more proactive in this to make sure we reach as many authors as possible to make them aware of these waivers and discounts that are available to them. So we've created new pages on the EIFL website. Each agreement has its own page with details on how to claim, because again, this varies from publisher to publisher. We had these pages just launched before the GA last year, if I remember correctly. We also share the information among EIFL coordinators, social media, we do training webinars. And as Rima mentioned already, we create these country-specific title lists. So we have one Excel for each country that lists which journals are included for them. So which journals their authors from that country can publish in at a waived or discounted APC. For each journal, it then lists whether it's a waiver or a discount. And these lists, most importantly, can be searched by subject. So if authors are trying to find journals, they can quickly find relevant ones in their field. And we have done an email campaign directly to researchers with these title lists. And it's been really good to see that they're being used, they're being looked at. There's been a massive increase in EIFL website traffic right after the campaigns. And actually, I think more hits than the EIFL website in general, from what our communications officer said. In total, over 4,400 downloads to these country-specific Excel title lists. These numbers are actually from August, so they're probably even higher by now, and we will be monitoring, obviously. We will also be monitoring the open access output and compare to previous years, and hopefully see an increase from those countries, especially for the specific publishers where we have agreements in place. So hopefully they'll be reporting in the next year. And just to close, this is my last slide. I also wanted to mention an EIFL flyer that we created with clickable links to help users find full text articles for free. These can be customized for each library to put their logo on it. And for example, the Search Your Libraries holdings, they can put a link to their library's website. And that's everything for me. I'll have a quick look at the Q&A. There was a question for Teresa, but I think we'll leave that till the end, and I will hand over to Iryna, and we'll have lots of time for questions at the end. Thank you.
Thanks, Romy. I'm opening my slides. Just a sec. Again, so good to see you all. And a quick update from EIFL Open Access Program, what happened since the last General Assembly. This is COVID-19 gateway that Rima mentioned in her slides, which was set up by our partner project OpenAir, and which we helped to curate. And it now includes over 100,000 publications on COVID-19 related issues, almost 6,000 data sets, almost 500 software products, and over 7,000 other research outputs. And speaking about publications, over 70,000 publications on COVID-19 are available in open access, and you can use this gateway as a resource on COVID-19 research. We also support researchers who would like to make their publications and data on COVID-19 available. And if they don't have discipline-specific repositories, or if they don't have institutional repositories which would accept that kind of data and publications, we maintain coronavirus disease research community on Zenoda, and we have almost 1,000 publications, data sets, software products there. And it's really great to see content coming up from China, from Iran, from Indonesia, and from all over the world. So you can use it to make your research results available. Also, when COVID-19 started, there was this need to rapidly share research data, but it was still a little bit not clear how exactly the data could be shared. And there was this demand from funders and requests from researchers to produce recommendations and guidelines. And Research Data Alliance created a team of over 600 researchers who worked together to produce these guidelines. And I was one of co-moderators for social sciences section, and it was really a remarkable example of can say radical collaborations in times of COVID, because I think the document that we produced is really useful. It covers how you can make clinical omics, epidemiology, social sciences data available, and it also has additional sections on community participation, indigenous data, legal and ethical considerations, and research software. So that's another resource that you can recommend to your researchers. And EIFL also supported Open COVID Pledge for Research in Education. And it was launched by Association for Learning Technology, following an approach of Open COVID-19 Pledge. And the idea is to make intellectual property openly and freely available to support educated students and decision makers, and to build a fair and more resilient education systems. If your universities and institutions also support this vision, having more open educational resources available, having open access to publications, open data, you can also sign this pledge, and let's make open education a reality together. We also have reasons to celebrate, and I'd like to congratulate our colleagues in the countries that adopted open access and open science policies, and just some examples. For example, in Hungary, it's a major research fund introduced a policy that requires data management plans from researchers. A funder in Poland, National Science Center, is really a great example of a strong policy on open access to publications, and also open access to research data policy with mandatory data management plans. And those policies are part of a broader open science framework of this funder. And it would be good to see more funders following this approach. And then another interesting example is Slovakia, where there is a national open science strategy and an action plan. And it was developed as a part of Open Government Partnership Initiative, and many EIFL countries are involved in Open Government Partnership, but not many of them use those partnerships as a vehicle to move ahead with open access and open science policies, and I think that could be a good example. I would also like to congratulate Addis Ababa University. Its Senate introduced a data sharing policy with an open data component, and our colleagues in Lithuania, Kaunas University of Technology, revised their open access policy and introduced a requirement to have data management plans from doctoral students, and there are also great examples of open science policies from two universities in Serbia, University of Novi Sad and State University of Novi Pazar. And like Teresa said, we were really grateful to you, to our network, to open access coordinators who are pushing this work in the countries. And we have policy projects in 16 more countries, and we expect good results soon. And if you are interested in institutional or national policy work, and if you don't work with us yet, please do, we'll be happy to. We also working with open access, open science communities on different continents. And I'd like to mention a couple of examples. So one of them is from Africa, where we have a LibSense community, a collaboration between library consortia and national research and education networks. And I'd like to thank our colleagues, Cecile in Cote d'Ivoire, Solomon in Ethiopia, Richard in Ghana, Gitao in Kenya, Geoffrey in Malawi, Paul and Daniel in Tanzania, David in Uganda, who provided excellent open access, open science country snapshots for our discussions, and who are involved in this LibSense work, as well as many more of you joining today. And we have different working groups focusing on science policies and leadership, infrastructure and capacity building. So if you're involved, thanks a lot. If you're not involved, get in touch with me if you are based in Africa, and we'll be happy to work with you. And one of the recent results was Principles and Actions for Global Participation on Open Science in Africa, which we produced together. And it describes our approach to open science infrastructures in Africa, and also to indigenous and traditional knowledge. And thank you everyone who contributed to this document. We're also building a community of practice in Africa together with our partner Confederation of Open Access Repositories. And thanks a lot, Gildis, Lailine, Jagadish, Ravia, Suetip for providing country updates on open access, open science at the recent Asia Open Science meeting. And we hope we'll be having more meetings like that to exchange experiences on the regional level. Open science training is another area where we are heavily involved. And just a couple of examples from my country, Ukraine. We launched a MOOC, mobile online open course on scholarly communication in digital age, that includes lectures on open science. And we use a national platform for MOOCs, and it's been very popular in times of COVID. We give 3 credits, and early career researchers really love this course. And we're launching a project in Ukraine on producing more open science courses, collaborating with universities and also a network of displaced universities in Ukraine. And we'll be addressing open science in climate changes like Teresa mentioned, and also in other discipline-specific areas. And if you would like to be involved in open science training work, please get in touch with us. We also coordinate a community of practice for training coordinators in research infrastructures in countries and in institutions. It's mainly European, but it also includes some members from Asia, Australia, North America. And it's a space where we share experiences. So if you're interested in that, in open science training, please join it. And one of the results of this informal community of practice of training coordinators was that there is a special skills and training working group, the European Open Science Cloud, which is a platform for open science developments in Europe. And I'm one of the rapporteurs in that working. My colleagues did. We've done a lot of webinars with our partners on supporting repository improvements, open access improvements, helping researchers to find credible open access journals, helping researchers with research identifiers, promoting open access books, improving discoverability of open access content. And many of those webinars we did in partnerships with library consortia, and one of them is CARLIG in Ghana. What CARLIG did, they developed a program that includes 4 webinars, and we're doing them together. We also did webinars for specific institutions, for example, Botswana International University for Science and Technology. And if your consortia or your country or your institution is interested in this kind of webinars and webinars program, please get in touch with me and we'll be happy to do them for you. And open infrastructures are really important in times of COVID and even when COVID is over. And we're proud and happy to be a part of Sustainability Coalition for Open Access Services that collaboratively supports open science infrastructures. And we already supported collaboratively 6 infrastructures, and I'd like to invite your libraries follow these developments and be a part of this process. And Open Access Week is coming, and as always, we will be celebrating and it's an honor for me to be on their Open Access Week Advisory Committee, and you can see a theme for this year, and it stresses this topic of equity and inclusion, which is very important in open access debates. And we'll be having events on equity and inclusion in infrastructures and also equity and inclusion in open science policies. We're also working with countries, for example, with Cécile in Côte d'Ivoire on a series of events in French for Open Access Week. So if you want to host those events together with us, please get in touch with me, and thanks a lot. I don't see any questions, so I'm handing over to Ramune.
Hello, everyone. I will share my screen now. Okay. So I am here to present Public Library Innovation Program update for the last 12 months. And I'm Ramune Petuchovaite, manager for EIFL Public Library Innovation Program. Please don't be surprised if you see my cat jumping on my lap. He likes visibility and is very happy to show himself to everyone at the conferences. So I'll start with few general slides on EIFL-PLIP program. And first I will I just remind that since 2017, EIFL-PLIP focused geography is Africa. And this is because we are supported by a special grant from Global Libraries Program of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that asked us to strengthen the public library field in Africa and support transformation so that libraries can meet community needs in a rapid changing environment. What we do, our main aim is advanced community development through sparking innovation in public libraries in developing and transition economy countries. And we do this through mainly three types of activities. First of all, building capacity of public librarians in Africa to start new services or improve existing services and help people make a better use of public access computers and internet in public libraries. We also support advocacy in government, with governments for better connectivity and new technology enabled services in public libraries. And also we work to empower and recognize public library innovators by making their achievements visible on national and international level, as well as encouraging them to share their knowledge and experience with others. As my colleagues, I will start from, of course, COVID-19. That was highly disruptive on public libraries across the globe. It has led many libraries, public libraries especially, halting their services for their communities for months. And some of them are still closed. And of course, those the most vulnerable were that the ones that did not have any experience with digital technology and navigating digital world, and relied on just physical resources and services. However, on the positive side, we have learned from our EIFL-PLIP grantees and partners that you really can't keep a public library locked down, at least for a long time. And if library staff has got experience and skills to navigate the digital world, also have a record of creative thinking and technology-enabled programs, they usually find a way to continue services and create new services. And here I would like to share one example from our old friend Kibera Community Library and its ICT officer Yusuf Ganiano, who started a new service in response to COVID-19 situation and providing students in Kibera slum to access a possibility to access learning resources through recycled mobile phones. He calls this services library at your hands, which is really amazing. We have more examples published in a blog around April, and we followed all our partners and partner libraries through communication, as email communication, and helped them to also discover some digital resources and digital apps that they can use serving their communities. However, to my view, the biggest challenges related to COVID-19 to libraries are still ahead. there might be more of them, but I see most important two. One is forming strong relationship and partnership with educational institutions to overcome consequences of learning crisis. And the second is really advocating and achieving that no library is left on the earth without decent connectivity and access to digital content. So now from the COVID-19, I'd like to go to the key activities of EIFL-PLIP program over last year. And we'll start with the main celebratory activity is like 10 years anniversary that Rima already mentioned. So in November last year, we had an opportunity to count our chickens over a decade and reflect on programs, activities, and impact. I personally think it was an incredible journey of exploration and learning that through hundreds of our partner libraries made a difference to communities from almost 30 countries across 4 continents. And if you are interested to learn more about this, I suggest you browse through the book of program partners' feedback to us on the meaning of EIFL-PLIP activities and collaboration with us. Also, please read the blog by Deborah Jacobs, former director of Global Libraries at Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who is our main funder. We were more than proud hearing from her that she considers this work of EIFL with PLIP to be one of Global Libraries' lasting legacies. From celebrations, let's move to our main activity actually and biggest in scope, which is capacity building of public librarians in Africa. Rima has touched and talked about the success story in Namibia. I'd like to give a bigger picture of our program, training of trainers and program that aims to strengthen continuous professional development of public librarians in Africa. So since 2018, we are focusing on transferring our capacity building activities to TOT, or train of trainers activity, and in this area we have worked with public library authorities, associations, or national libraries in 4 countries: Kenya, Namibia, Uganda, and Zambia. The scope of our work and approach in the program was very different in each country. Assessments show that results are very, very similar. And the most important is that we did an assessment this year, and by now, across these 4 countries, we have a network of 62 public librarians skilled to train others. And these newly skilled trainers have already cascaded training, reaching to 677 librarians in their countries. About 300 of them were reached through the planned cascade training that we kind of required in the program. The other more than half actually was trained by personal initiative of those trainers. And especially in this area, I should commend the initiative of Kenyan public librarians who did a really great job teaching and training reaching to their peer librarians in their regions and doing much more than required by the formal program. And I believe this will continue because it seems bringing and showing a good results in libraries of the public librarians that are trained. So the subjects include, of course, first of all, digital literacy, curriculum development for different groups of people, advocacy, communication, usual training subjects in our program, but also there are more general courses brought by our content partners, like facilitation and also EIFL-PLIP team, facilitation skills, leadership skills, rethinking library spaces, design thinking, learning circles for online courses, and more. And I would like to encourage library consortia in those 4 countries, but also in Africa continent, to think about using those resource people in their training. Though it's not usual to invite public librarians as trainers to academic libraries, but these trainers are really well prepared and also did their part and testing of their skills was in public library setting, and they could help your staff to get new skills. We also continued initiative for young African library innovators in 2020. And just before the lockdown, 5 young public librarians from Kenya, Namibia, Uganda, Zambia, all of them are coming from those groups of trainers that I mentioned just now. They attended the Public Library Association 2020 conference in Nashville, United States. We partnered with Public Library Association, which is a unit of American Library Association, to make this happen. And besides sharing their knowledge with each other and also with American librarians, it's really a huge conference. They also had an opportunity to visit libraries and learn about Nashville library experience together with a bigger group of African librarians brought by EIFL-IA. These were like more senior librarians in like higher positions of middle management or top management who have graduated the EIFL-IA Leadership Academy. Though the timing of the program, as I said, was just before lockdown, but what we saw that these young librarians really found a way to make a use of their new skills and new ideas. And this is what I would like to encourage, again, consortia to pay attention and support their young professionals, because if for nothing else, those young librarians are, they don't know what is impossible, and they make impossible real. So that's why we should be thinking about supporting and motivating our young librarians. We also work in advocacy area, as I mentioned, and we continue to collaborate with EIFL and other partners through the platform of Dynamic Coalition for Public Access in Libraries that we created at the Internet Governance Forum years ago. So last year, we organized 1-hour meeting of the Dynamic Coalition of Public Access to Libraries in the IGF conference 2019 in Berlin, Germany. And it was on the topic of public access contributions to public policy success. EIFL-PLIP has brought 2 speakers to this, this session from Communication Agency of Kenya and Uganda Communication Commission to share cases of equipping public libraries with technology using universal service funds. Together with EIFL, we also at this session presented a study that we've done on the role of public libraries in broadband policies. In this study, we identify that there are more than 30 countries worldwide that include libraries in their national broadband strategies and plans. And these roles are mainly falls in 4 categories. It's providing public access to bridge digital divide. Also, another category is providing digital literacy and ICT skills, especially to people who have never used internet, but also strengthening those skills for the others. Again, supporting for educational institution and broader educational goals, like providing access to e-learning, digitizing educational materials, and so on. And the last category is digitization of content and creation of local languages. This year, we are also planning to do a session at IGF 2020. This conference will be online, and we will be looking into equitable access to digital content lessons from COVID-19. Besides librarians' experience, we would also like to look into good practices of other stakeholders, like content providers and publishers, who recognizing the challenges during the lockdown of COVID-19 has removed barriers to access their content to their partner libraries. And if you, some of you are present here and have good experience that potentially could become a recommended practice in the times of emergency, please contact me. Maybe we can have a conversation and invite you to speak at this session in the beginning of November. We also continue the calls of our Innovation Award, which is meant to empower and recognize public library innovators that do interesting things, outstanding things using technology without EIFL-PLIP support. Since 2011, we have awarded 43 public library innovators in 22 countries in Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, and Caribbean. And now we have a new call open and looking for examples of innovative services that address issues outlined in Sustainable Development Goals Agenda, as well as for services that was introduced specifically as a response to COVID-19. This call is open until 16th of November. Public and community libraries from all developing and transition economic countries are eligible. So if you know some public libraries in your country that do amazing things, please let them know about this opportunity. The award includes financial award of $1,500 US, and also visibility in the international community. In terms of what we are planning to do in the future, first of all, I'm happy that this year we managed to get a new grant from Belgium Development Agency, Annabelle, through the Hackett program for a new project that aims to close digital divide in Uganda. We will partner with public and community libraries that are equipped with technology and have internet connectivity there. Also with National Library of Uganda, peer-to-peer university from US, and Mandela Foundation based in Uganda to do this. We also are planning to start continuous professional development trainers program in Ghana, in similar to what we've done in Namibia, Kenya, and other countries. We are thinking about continuing advocacy for public library connectivity in Africa, in our partner countries, especially Zambia, and also in the framework of above mentioned projects in Uganda and Ghana. And the last, we are also looking for a new partnership to do a yearly or Young African Library Innovators Program in 2021. So last slide is actually to thank to our all fantastic partners and EIFL-PLIP team, as well as EIFL General Leadership Team, Louise, Andrews, and Rima, to help us to do all those things. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please come ahead.
Oh, thank you, Ramune. There was a question in the Q&A for you, but Rima has already answered.
Okay.
And I think Kaspar is has a question about where the tungsten is, and we all hope that you can elaborate on that, because we don't know what he's talking about.
Okay, just I will escape this. Okay. So what was the question?
It's in this mist. I'm sorry, but where's the tungsten? I don't know if you know what he's talking about. We assume it's an inside joke.
Tungsten? Where is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry. Kasper, can you explain?
Okay, so let's maybe just dismiss this and go ahead with there's one question open, which is, can EIFL provide financial support to a project related to development of national e-resources? Maybe Rima, that's one for you.
We don't really have funding for work, for activities like that. So maybe you can also elaborate what exactly you meant by the National E-Resources Platform.
Elisa, if you want to, I can allow you to talk for a moment, if that's okay for you. You should be able to talk now.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, the idea was, for example, we have a national consortium that we need to make a platform. So we have resources from university members, and we want to build a platform which can combine those resources together and so give access to the other university on those resources.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of solutions that would address this, but like Rima said, unfortunately, EIFL doesn't have the funding to financially support it, but we can maybe have a discussion offline and how we can help you possibly raise funds and talk to stakeholders to finance it or get your members to contribute.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there's another question I can see from Celie. How can we encourage authors to consider publishing in open access journals? I think I talked a little bit about it by distributing these country-specific lists that are those journals where they have waivers and discounts eligible, available to them. Obviously, that's an incentive. If you look at journals where they don't have to pay to publish in open access. I know Iryna's program has done a lot of awareness raising about the benefits of publishing in open access. So I think that's maybe something you can work on with your researchers, so they understand that if they publish in open access, the articles are read a lot more widely, they get a lot more downloads, their impact is greater. So you could think about doing a campaign around that.
I think there is also a need for another step. Policies in universities and in the countries that reward researchers and promote researchers should include open access journals. And that's something that we've been working on with some consortia to make sure that directory of open access journals is used as a credible list of journals for researchers to be promoted in the countries.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to say that Andrew asked, is there a plan to include academic libraries in the future projects? That's what we always do, except PLIP, I guess. But even in PLIP, as you heard, they encourage to collaborate with academic libraries. So sure, if you have ideas, get in touch with us and we'll be happy to discuss that.
Yes.
Actually, I can add to what Iryna said. You know, I looked into Library Consortia survey that we did this year, and I found out that among all consortiums, there are about 1,000 public libraries present. Only 100 public libraries are actually active in subscription of e-resources, and about more than half of library consortia, EIFL Library Consortia does not have all public libraries as their members. So there's something to explore. I understand that not all academic academic resources and scholarly resources are relevant to public libraries, but in terms of COVID-19 situation, public libraries in general, if they are connected, can become gateways to access for students who are not in the campus. And I have also question from Derip about Ethiopian Public Library partnership. So I can say that unfortunately we were not able to connect with the Addis Ababa Tourism and Culture Agency, and that's why we think this partnership has ended.
And there is a question about co-funding. Can EIFL co-create projects or submit joint projects for funding together with consortia? Yes, and we do now. So usually when there are calls for proposals that we respond, we always look what are the requirements, who is eligible, and we do have a number of proposals that we put together as consortia. And whenever we see an opportunity, we do reach out. And so whenever you'll see some international calls or global calls or some calls locally for proposals, and you see a benefit of working with us, please get in touch.
I can see the question from Kat about EIFL-PLIP returning to Zimbabwe and assisting. So actually, as you see, as a small team, we have quite full, our hands got quite full for the upcoming years. But of course, if we have additional funding and time and resources, we might consider going to other countries. The question is always, or our requirement is always one. Public library there should have internet and connectivity, or should be getting it from the government, because we do not support infrastructure part, only capacity building to help libraries to make a better use of technology they have.
Okay, so there's a question from Diana about tomorrow's session. Diana, shall I allow you to speak? Might be easier. So you
Yes.
should
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you all for all the informative information, everyone in person. My question about tomorrow's session, the 5 minutes talks. Are the talks arranged by person, or how are we going to share the information?
So as some of you know, tomorrow we have an internal day with EIFL coordinators, and we'll have 2 sessions to discuss COVID-19 response. And the idea is, Diana, that we'll use the same platform as today. So you can either speak or if you have slides, you can show slides like we did today. And I'll also show you a list of questions, because you already described all the issues and questions when you register. So I have that, and I'll show tomorrow for the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
And those of you who are joining tomorrow, please make sure to use the right link, because we have different links for different sessions.
Okay, thank you.
And we've just had a question from Kunwa Shao, sharing skills and experience about negotiating with publishers. Started to put together some detailed instructions and tips on that. So I'll probably be easier to send this to you, and maybe have a chat about this offline. I'll put my email address and the answer, so you can get in touch. And these are things that we have shared already, but I'm happy to resend. Thank you.
So there's this question in the chat. As I can understand, we can read and listen to your videos and details. So I assume this is about the recording. We'll share the recording together with the presentation and the links on the website. So don't worry about this. So are there any other questions? Sorry.
Yes, and just to say, we'll make the slides available as well. So any links can be clicked on, and you can watch the recording at the same time and just look at the slides, and then you'll have all the links in the right places, because someone asked a question about links as well.
Yeah. And there are also some additional links in the chat that we will make sure that they have they're present there in the document as well. So, are there any other questions?
I think we'll have an opportunity for those coordinators that will be joining us for tomorrow's session. We'll have an opportunity to ask more questions and for us to ask questions to you about how is the situation and how we can help you.
There is also a question from Judith to Romy and Ramune.
Mm-hmm. About it says
And Judith is in Uganda.
Okay. Public libraries are actually included in a lot of the agreements, and I think there was a bit of a push for access to resources for public libraries in some countries by Ramune. So there shouldn't really be an exclusion.
Well, you know, there are possible barriers for public library, several possible barriers for public library benefiting from the e-resources that are negotiated through EIFL consortia. And one, of course, the membership requirements at the consortia, and if public libraries are eligible to join. Another thing, of course, whether public libraries are supported by their authorities to become providers of e-resources, and they have a membership fee to pay and so on. And also the relevancy of how relevant the resources are, because as I said, you know, not all scholarly resources should be available through public libraries, but in terms of, you know, depending on the audiences that public libraries have, public libraries and consortia can decide. But there are examples like, I think, Slovenia and Estonia and in Lithuania, public libraries are part of consortia and subscribe to some resources.
Yeah, and we also know that Kenya National Library Service is a part of the Kenyan Library Consortia, and I think the National Library of Uganda is also part of Uganda Consortium. So I think it's up to consortia to reach out to public libraries, because we know that there is a membership fee to become a member of consortium, and it might be a barrier to some of public libraries to become a member. So I guess, yeah, if we want to help, I guess we need to reach out to them.
Mm-hmm.
There's another question for me from Justin McKaylee. How long will we wait for MyLoft? We do have an agreement in place for MyLoft, so maybe you can clarify. I'm not sure. What do you mean exactly by waiting for MyLoft?
Hold on, I'm allowing you to talk, Justin. Yes.
Justin, would you like to explain? If not, again, I'll put my email in the answer, so feel free to send me an email and explain further, and I can answer directly.
Okay, so I don't think he's able to speak because I can't switch off the microphone.
Okay.
Okay, so any other questions?
I can't see anything.
No, so there's Andrew, there's a remark from you in the chat. I'll just read it out loud because it's not really a question. So there's need for more advocacy to have public libraries to get actively involved in e-resources. But the main challenge is that they don't currently have active budgets.
So that's the area to work for consortia joining, you know, public libraries and advocating for for access to digital content. That would make a huge difference in emergency situation like COVID-19.
Okay, so I think if there are no more questions, we can call this this meeting to an end. Thank you very much for all of you attending. We're very happy to report that more than 120 people came in from more than 45 countries. So that's quite impressive. So thank you very much. Thank you for all the speakers as well. For the sessions tomorrow, for those of you who are registered, I will repeat that please check the email you got upon registration to make sure that you have all the correct links and especially also the correct times. It's a bit of a challenge with the different time zones, so make sure you have it right.
Mm-hmm. There was a question from Richard about this. So the Transformative Agreements networking session starts at the same time as we started today. And then there's a sharing session before, and there's also a sharing session after, depending on which time zone you're in.
So one is 2 hours before today's start time, and another one is an hour and a half later than today's start time.
Okay.
Thank you for joining, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Hope to see you in person sometime soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some of you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.